Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel.
Hello, hope everyone's doing good today.
We're back with another reaction. Today we're going to be checking out 10 infamous British gangsters. I don't know anything about British gangsters, so without further ado, let's check it out. I only see gangsters like in movies.
Say hello to my little friend. Welcome to Watch Mojo UK, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 infamous British gangsters.
And he just fights. He just fights and fights and fights.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we take a look at the most ruthless and notorious gangsters in modern British history.
The worst crime a man could commit is bring his family up in poverty. So I don't regret any of my actions.
Number 10. Lenny McLean. Frequently dubbed the hardest man in Britain, McLean was known to most people simply as the Governor.
Oh, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. That's a really good movie.
While his gangster credentials aren't as prominent as some, he did become Britain's most famous bare-knuckle street fighter, and reportedly one of the best. Throughout his career, McLean said to have fought in almost 4,000 matches, and to have won most of them.
Well, I used to mind the toughest clubs in Britain, all over the country.
Oh, is this like him?
I had about 20,000.
Wow, so he played in the movies
as well. An important figure in the East End as a bouncer, bodyguard and enforcer, he often associated with people such as the Kray twins and Charles Bronson, before in his later life he worked as an actor.
I suggest you get those guns. Quick!
Number 9. Thomas McGraw. Born in Glasgow, Tam the licensee McGraw's criminal career started off with burglary and armed robbery, and he eventually became one of the most wanted men in Scotland. In the 1980s, after somehow avoiding a stint in prison after a failed robbery, he began to expand his criminal empire by selling heroin and purchasing numerous clubs and pubs.
The wee man was Scottish.
He was one of the key figures in Glasgow's ice cream wars, where violent confrontations become commonplace among criminals using ice cream vans as a front for drug sales.
Wow.
Number 8. Charles Bronson.
Okay.
With his taste for fighting guards and inmates alike, Charles Bronson became known as Britain's most violent prisoner, and is one of British crime's most notorious figures.
They said, I'm bigger than my name.
Born Michael Peterson, Bronson began as a petty criminal and was first imprisoned for armed robbery.
Prison was finally a place where I could sharpen my tools.
Upon his release in 1987, he entered the world of bare-knuckle boxing, but his fighting career was fairly short-lived because 69 days later, he was in jail again. Out again in 92, he was arrested a third time for conspiracy to rob and has never been freed since.
Wow.
Would you like a cup of tea too, mate?
Number 7. Freddie Foreman. He's best known as Brown Bread Fred, or the godfather of British crime, as many publications have come to refer to him, but Foreman says he's nothing like Marlon Brando.
All I wanted to do was make money so we could live a decent life.
One of the East End gangster scene's most feared figures, he was close to the infamous Kray twins and was implicated in numerous murders and other criminal activities.
Once you pull the trigger, you never know what's going to happen. So.
Though never actually convicted of killing anybody, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for disposing of the body of Jack the Hat McVitie, and later in relation to 1983's Shoreditch Security Express robbery.
I feel like when my time's
this is for real.
At least I've had an eventful life, if nothing else.
Number 6. Tommy Comerford. The hometown of the Beatles has had its share of shady characters. This includes one of the first big business criminals to establish in England the kind of international drug trafficking network that you perhaps usually link to a mob overseas. Drug baron Tommy Tucker Comerford was instrumental in forming the first serious drug dealing cartel in Britain, which made the Liverpool Mafia the richest in the country. His first stint in jail came after a bank robbery, and during his long criminal career, he was sentenced to more than 34 years behind bars. Number 5. Desmond and Dominic Noonan. These two brothers were the head of one of Manchester's most infamous and ruthless gangs, which by the late 1990s had become one of the most notorious crime families in the whole of Britain.
We don't do everything nice, but you know, we do look after each other. We look after our friends.
Involved in drug trafficking, nightlife security, and armed robbery, the Noonans' reign over Manchester's underworld lasted over 20 years.
By day, it's run by police. By night, it's run by gangsters. Manchester is where I was born, where I live, and where I'll die.
During that time, They were also suspected of being responsible for
I
more
don't
than
know, but
25
I think
murders.
I know the face.
Desmond was stabbed in 2005 and died of his wounds, while Dominic
surprised.
is currently serving 22 years in prison for arson, blackmail and sex offences.
Shut up, I'll send someone out to beat you up in a minute.
Number 4. Frankie Fraser. One of the most recognisable faces in modern British crime, Mad Frankie Fraser was a guy you didn't want to cross.
The police say I've killed 40 people.
All of them had like
They'd have said
documentaries
41, I'd have
or
really
movies
been
made
upset.
about them.
I hate odd numbers.
And the nickname is not just for show. He was actually certified insane during a short prison stint after World War II, a conflict he'd managed not to take part in by deserting. Fraser eventually became an enforcer for the Richardson Gang during the 60s and was reportedly involved in numerous episodes of torture and murder.
But I allegedly pulled a guy's teeth out with pliers. I only wished it had been true.
His violence followed him in prison, where he would often start fights with other inmates and guards.
That is where I slung Eric Mason out with an axe in his head.
Number 3. The Gunn Brothers. Heads of the Bestwood cartel, named after the Bestwood estate in Nottingham where they set up their criminal enterprise, brothers David and Colin Gunn became the city's foremost gang lords.
In the 1990s, the brothers had risen through the ranks from petty criminals to underworld figures, a rise largely unchallenged
Sounds like
by
an
the
old
city's
school
other
crime
criminals.
TV show.
Drug trafficking, protection rackets, corruption and murder became commonplace under their watch, so much so that the city earned the nickname of Shottingham. As their empire grew and drugs flowed in, Colin started becoming more and more violent and volatile, as steroids and cocaine use heightened his worst impulses. Under his watch, even innocents would pay the price of his crimes. Number 2. The Richardson Brothers. Charlie and Eddie Richardson were the leaders of what many still consider the most sadistic and ruthless gang in Britain, the Richardson Gang.
Wow.
They were often simply referred to as the Torture Gang due to their preferred way of settling scores and intimidating rivals and transgressors. After holding mock trials, their victims could be subject to electric shocks, teeth pulling using pliers, toe cutting, or even being nailed to the floor. The Richardsons controlled South London, but ended up in a feud with the Krays that lasted into the mid-60s.
The Richardsons, they were frighteners, really vicious people.
Number 1. The Kray Twins. The most infamous gangsters to ever call London home, Ronnie and Reggie Kray were the most prominent criminals in the city's East End over the 1950s and 60s.
Clips from this movie.
No.
Armed robbery, hijacking, murder and general violence were only some of the brothers' specialities, while heads of their own gang, the Firm. As owners of several nightclubs in the 60s, they became part of the swinging London scene and gained a certain amount of celebrity, even appearing on national television. But they were finally arrested in 1968 and essentially spent the rest of their lives in prison.
Now, before we start, got a little joke for you. You'll love this one. Paranoid schizophrenic who walks into a bar.
I have no idea because I don't know almost any people on that list at all.
It's like real people, real story, and real things. It feels like
Yeah, it's gangsters.
What?
There's definitely quite a few infamous serial killers in UK, but I've never really heard much about gangsters. They deal with like the whole illegal business in the city in a way. I guess they're not as famous as maybe serial killers. Any type of like serial killer documentaries and things like that are really popular right now. But when it comes to gangsters, maybe not. Although I can see they did make quite a few movies.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Like, it's just very shocking to me.
You know, you live in a city and then you don't even realize that
A lot of things are going on the
so
ground.
many gangsters were roaming around or, you know, still do. And, you know, they're just unknown.
They rule the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's it.
And the kind of crazy things that happen, you just hear the stories and you're like, oh my God, is this really happening? Is this a movie or is it really happening to people? You just fall a victim and you're gone.
Yeah. That's what happens, you know, if you kind of do shady stuff and deal with, you know, these type of people.
That was a bit scary, but yeah, I needed to check that out. Bye guys, thank you. That's it from us. We'll see you in our next reaction video.
See you later.
Bye.